Good evening, everybody. Oh, everybody's here. Yay. I'm sorry. Great. Welcome to Fifth Avenue Committee's annual spring reception and awards ceremony. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm Michelle de la Hoz, and it's really an honor to be the executive director of the Fifth Avenue Committee and to have you all here this evening. This year's theme, Fighting for Justice, Celebrating Courage, honoring those who fight for the values and the soul of our democracy, is even more relevant today than it was in November when Donald Trump was elected president. As Philip A. Randolph once said, a community is democratic only when the humblest and weakest person can enjoy the highest civil, economic, and social rights that the biggest and most powerful possess. Fifth Avenue Committee believes that deeply and knows that as a society we will be judged by how we treat the people and the communities that are different, are in need, or less fortunate than we are. Which is why FAC has worked for nearly 40 years to educate, house, train, empower, and organize New Yorkers. It is also why we partner with people like all of you. Now more than ever, it's extremely reaffirming and quite honestly necessary to come together with partners, allies, and friends to fight for the values and the vision of society that we hold dear. And through this, gather together for collective action. Thanks to our host committee, your support and generosity tonight, and your partnerships throughout the year, FAC is able to offer free and highly effective programs to help thousands of New Yorkers annually, regardless of race, regardless of class, regardless of immigration status, to learn English, to get their high school diploma, to gain access to college, to learn a new skill, to be placed into a job, get access to public benefits, financial counseling, legal counseling, and get access to truly, deeply affordable housing that they can call home for themselves and for their families. And perhaps most importantly now, to organize and empower people and communities to fight for inclusion, equity, and justice. Thanks to your support and partnerships, Fifth Avenue Committee is expanding our impact. We're preserving deeply affordable housing in Park Slope and Gowanus with our FAC Renaissance project, and we've got the whole FAC Renaissance team here, so thank you all very much for that. We're building New York City's first expanded public library with 100% deeply and permanently affordable housing in Sunset Park. It's a model we definitely want to take on the road. And we're doing our first project in Queens. Yes. More than 140 units of senior housing and a senior center in Queens. So we're very excited about that. And thanks to your support and partnerships, we are preventing more foreclosures, organizing tenants in more buildings, helping more students learn English and get their high school equivalency, and really helping more people find their home. We also graduated our first environmental justice leaders from our Turning the Tide environmental justice effort. That's right. Our first digital stewards training program to install and maintain a Wi-Fi mesh network in Gowanus. BWI, our workforce development affiliate, is expanding its programs and offering a graduate program for its Made in New York TV and Film Production Assistant Training Program, and also launched a solar installation workforce training program. And certainly, and I know a lot of people are excited about this, FURY, Families United for Racial and Economic Equality, has relaunched their Fired Up Leadership Academy, relaunched their Furious Youth organizing campaign, and their voter engagement and voter registration efforts. And thanks to many people in this room, for the second time in more than 40 years, we have been successful in ensuring that a full-service community supermarket remains on Fifth Avenue in Park Slope. And we're definitely looking forward to the future discussions about the future of Gowanus and making sure that the vision for Gowanus is one that advances economic, social, and environmental justice, something that obviously we have some ideas about how to do. The reality is, though, that Fifth Avenue Committee's impact is even greater when we have leadership of elected officials at all levels of government. And today, we're here to honor and to thank Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and quite honestly, his special counsel and lead in the real estate division, John Smania, who's been fighting abuse, corruption, and fraud on behalf of all New Yorkers, and doing so quite ably, I would say. Yeah. So I'm going to invite up Kathleen Wright Hendrix, a homeowner who has benefited from our foreclosure counseling, and Kim Bernie Brook, a tenant association leader in a former Slate property in South Slope that was facing predatory equity challenges, to come up and help present the People's Champion Award.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Wright Hendrix, and I've been a homeowner now since 1999. I bought my house from what was then Columbia Equities. Columbia Equities was one of those companies that we now see on the news, on TV, that provides homes to people like myself with low incomes. But I had the opportunity to become a homeowner. But it wasn't long before I realized that the house that I bought had a lot of pretty bandages on it to cover up, you know, what was hid. And it had a lot of problems, and there was a lot of situations. It needed a lot of work, repairs. And this brought me into foreclosure for the first time, trying to do the repairs. Being a first-time home buyer, I didn't know what to do. I researched the web, and I came across a company by the name of Neighbors Helping Neighbors. I went to this company just by phone call. I called and was immediately in contact with a gentleman named Robert McCool. Mr. McCool diligently took me through the process. This was the first time I was in foreclosure, which I was in foreclosure twice. He took me through the process. He taught me patience. He taught me to not give up. And we went through the process, and in that 2-year period, he helped me save my home. I lost my job in 2004. I was let go from my job that I had for 15 years. And I was going through, I just had the house 5 years now. It was a work in progress. After I went through, I had this foreclosure. Things was working fine, but then the repairs was getting worse. I didn't have the money to fix it. Down the line, things were just really falling apart. The plumbing was atrocious. And every couple of months, it was costing us $300 to $500 just to keep that bandage in place so that we could use our facilities. Down the line, I became into foreclosure again. And I was going to court. I really didn't know what to do. I went to court, and they have these, I guess you could call them liaisons, these people that would help the people. So I met this woman named Ashfan Kong, I believe her name was. And by the strangest coincidence, she was with a company called Neighbors Helping Neighbors. This was in 2010. And Ms. Khan right away took my information. I asked her about Mr. McCool, and she said yes, that was her co-worker. They worked together closely, and she proceeded to help me with my foreclosure. Down the line, it took so long. It was the scariest thing in my life because not knowing what to do, not knowing where to turn, they were just diligent in helping, diligently keeping me up when at night, you know, it's the scariest thing when you think you're gonna lose the roof over your head and you don't know where to turn. But as I'm going back and forth to court each month, it just slowly seemed like I wasn't gonna win. When Ms. Khan left, she put me in touch with the person that was going to replace her, which was Lorraine Seabrook Fisher. Miss Fisher is awesome. She is totally awesome. She helped me out so much. She would not quit. She is a fighter. She kept me fighting. She kept my head up. When I was floating, we were both, you know, just in contact. She called, she made calls. She kept in contact with Wells Fargo. She just refused to quit. She will not let me quit. In the process, it took from 2010 until last week. They turned us down 3 times. They would not give me a loan modification. She was like, don't give up. Don't give up. We will fight. We will fight. We will fight. She continued to make phone calls. She continued to call me and encourage me. She had me go to court. I did not miss not one meeting, even though I did not understand a lot of times the procedures, the processes that I was going through that was being talked around me. She was like, just listen and let me know what they said. When they turned us down the last time in 2016, she was like, don't give up. She heard something that they had going on, why they wouldn't look at the modification again. And even at that time, she was in a meeting and I was on her mind. And she was in a meeting with someone and she asked if there was anyone who had any contact with anybody in Wells Fargo because they wouldn't look at my loan modification. And Miss Luz Torres had a contact. And just last week, I got an approval for a repayment plan. And it was only through her due diligence, only through her not giving up, only through her and Neighbors Helping Neighbors helping the neighbors of New York. And I appreciate her tremendously. So right now, I'm starting a payment plan, and we will take it from there. And she just told me, we will finish this fight together. So I appreciate Neighbors Helping Neighbors. Thank you very much.
And the Attorney General fought through obviously, the Great Recession had tremendous impact on millions of families across the country. Here in New York, thousands of families that wouldn't have ordinarily faced foreclosure were facing foreclosure. And really through the Attorney General's efforts to gain settlement funds, those are granted to organizations like Neighbors Helping Neighbors, our HUD, Fifth Avenue Committee's HUD certified counseling affiliate, to work with families like Kathleen.
I'm sorry, I need notes. Hi, my name is Kim Burney-Brook, and I am a 17-year resident of 457 15th Street. In October of 2014, our building was sold to Slate Property Group. But with some creative and, let's be honest, exhausting tenant organizing, I am really happy to report today that all of the regulated units in our building that were regulated in 2014 are still regulated today. When Slate started construction, we called 311, and we realized the power of 311 and shut them down 4 times for not having proper permits and deviating from the plans that were submitted to the DOB, 4 times in 3 months. We were told time and time again that we were protracting their timeline, and we said that's the goal here. And I have to say, these tactics of harassment that landlords like mine do, not only through construction, but through frivolous lawsuits, putting fictitious charges on our rental statements, making tenants feel unwelcome in their homes that they have lived in for long periods of time, is unacceptable. We shouldn't have to work so hard to stay in our homes in a safe environment. So thanks to Fifth Avenue Committee, Stabilizing NYC, and support from New York City Council member Brad Lander, and also Attorney General Eric Schneiderman and Mr. Spagna, I know that abuses by landlords and private investors to destabilize, rent-stabilized housing are being taken seriously. So families like mine, if you see the 2 little kids running around, those are mine, can live in peace, and we can stay in our neighborhoods and in our homes and our communities. So thank you.
So on behalf of Fifth Avenue Committee, I'd like to invite up John Spagna to accept the award, the People's Voice Award. Obviously, the elected officials are at the front line, but I think we all know behind the scenes that there's a team of very talented and dedicated attorneys, and quite honestly, advocates also like Dina Levy, who, she definitely deserves a round of applause too, who make sure that the issues that you just heard about get brought to the surface and are fought on a different scale, which is exactly what we need. So congratulations.
Thank you. And on behalf of Eric Schneiderman, thank you. Tomorrow, I start a trial against the landlord who's accused of, among other things, stories I'm sure you're very, very familiar with, turning off the heat for weeks on end, illegal construction, and one of the worst things is just spreading dust that's filled with lead around and tearing down a building in Crown Heights around a family, 3 families, one of which included a 4-year-old kid. And one of the lines from the opening statement that I'm going to make is that up until 2012, that building was their home, and the defendant took that home from them. They stayed, but he took it from them. He took the security that people get from their homes. He made it a place of anxiety and fear and danger. And it's something that no one should ever have to live with, and it's something that was a huge motivating factor in the AG taking a real interest in these cases. And Dina Levy, when she kind of dragged me into this, said, listen, we have this it's the Wild West, we don't know what to do, and she gave me a description. I said, I don't know much about real estate, but I hate bullies, and let's go. And Yeah, and that's exactly kind of what we've seen. We've just seen bullying in all different forms, from deed theft to, you know, outrageous financings to eviction by construction. That's what it is. And I was lucky enough to have been brought up under District Attorney Robert Morgenthau, who taught me that creativity and imagination are two of the best tools that any prosecutor can have. And then, you know, the bravery of Eric Schneiderman, because if you fail on these cases, you fail publicly. And if you fail, there's no going back. And knock on wood, we have not failed yet. And in fact, we are continuing to see the benefits of our work. But honestly, our work would be nothing without community groups like FAC, because quite frankly, we just couldn't do it. We wouldn't be able to reach the people who need it the most. We wouldn't be able to navigate the bureaucracies that are hard to navigate, and we really couldn't do it without our partners. So thank you, and all of you do amazing, amazing work, and we hope to continue to coordinate with you and work with you to protect these people who need it most and keep them in their homes and keep them safe from bullies.
I would say bullies is definitely one way to describe it. The other, yeah, you definitely had to move the microphone up and down for that one. You know, the other piece of it is, you know, criminalizing greed, right? I mean, we've been criminalizing poverty in this country for a long time, and I think it takes real bravery to criminalize greed and all of the effects that it has in our society. And I think the Attorney General has taken great steps to make sure that the public's interest is first and foremost. And so we thank the Attorney General for his leadership. We thank Special Counsel John Spagna. And quite honestly, we thank Kim and Kathleen for coming up, and you saw the tenacity that they need to have to keep fighting year after year. A lot of people give up. And quite honestly, that's what a lot of owners count on, right? They count on a lot of people giving up. And part of our message at Fifth Avenue Committee is that there is hope if we collectively work together and show that there's a better way forward. So with that, let's talk about the better way forward. So the election of Donald Trump as our 45th president has shaken many communities and people and resulted in a resistance movement that will not be thwarted. The impact of his presidency has been felt immediately and threatens many of us locally. Understanding that those threats are threats to the soul of our democracy, Get Organized Brooklyn was formed. And I'd like to invite up Francisca Ramales, a student in Fifth Avenue Committee's Adult Education Program, and Monica Underwood, a local leader of Fury, Families Organized for Racial and Economic Equality, to help present the Community Leadership Award.
Hi, my name is Francisca Ramales, and I am a GED graduated. Thanks to my teacher, Wright, in the Fifth Avenue Committee, I am from Mexico, and I have spent the last 20 years in Brooklyn, raising the son, going back to school to improve my English, earning my GED, and working. I know many good things that this country and New York City can offer an undocumented resident. My fellow classmates from all over the world share my love for the many opportunities that United States have offered to us. Now, in these difficult times, when immigrants are seen as a problem to be eliminated, I'm so grateful to our friends from Get Organized Brooklyn and the work that they do to protect the neighbors. These neighbors, working with Rabbi Rachel Timonier and the Congregation Bethlehem, and the council member Brad Lander, have dedicated endless hours to helping people find peace from this oppression in their community. Their goal is simple: to end racism Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, homophobia, transphobia, and misogyny. They are fighting to preserve the social safety net that protects so many of us. Get Organized Brooklyn fights to protect our planet from ravages of climate change. They stand up for those free press, the right to vote, and doing all they can to protect the strength of our democracy. These neighbors have family, jobs, and bills to pay, yet they find time to give back every day, whether it is finding translators, pulling together a lawyer and social workers, and offering citizenship classes to those too close to the goal of citizenship. They did not turn their back and wait for others to care. They came together to resist hate, injustice, and protect the neighbors from prejudice and simple hatred for those different in need. Under the name Get Organized Brooklyn, these neighbors have come together to resist hatred and injustice. They came to care and help. For all that, I am deeply grateful.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have to say my name because Michelle just told you. It's Monica Underwood. I'm a resident of Wyckoff Gardens in Gowanus. As a resident of public housing and Fury leader who's actively involved in preserving and improving our communities, it is my honor to present this award tonight for a group who understands the importance of civic engagement and activism against oppression. With Trump's election and the proposed budget cuts to HUD, we're at a point where there is no more room for people to sit at home and look the other way. Fury has spent, thank you. Fury has spent many years fighting against displacement and the destruction of public housing. So we're excited to have new allies willing to get involved. Please join me in giving a round of applause to the folks of Get Organized BK and Councilman Brad Landers. And this award, I was supposed to say award, so excuse me. It's an award for Brad Landers. Thank you, Brad. He's been so essential in helping us, and we love you. Who's been essential in getting them off the ground and mobilized in our communities across Brooklyn. Thank you.
So I'm going to invite up Councilmember Lander, Robbie Timmener, Ms. Kaufman, Ms. Firestone, and Ms. Freeland. How many people here, raise your hand if you've been to a Get Organized BK meeting? Okay, now, you're going to have to, Brad sends out the emails weekly on Friday. There's a Facebook group. So we're going to see a lot more hands, I think, by the time when we do this question again next year. Okay, photo first. And by the way, this is Tia Struther, Fury Program Coordinator.
Hi, my name is Gail Kaufman, and I'm here as one of three of us representing Get Organized BK. Thank you so much to FAC for this recognition. I'm with a working group called Indivisible Nation BK, and our focus is on providing information and devising actions and ways to reach our elected officials directly to push them to oppose Trump's agenda and to support progressive legislation at federal, state, and city levels. And we look forward to working with FAC to oppose proposed budget cuts and to collaborating with Fury on voter registration and voter engagement issues. And I'd just like to thank Rabbi Timoner and Councilmember Brad Lander for assembling and convening Get Organized BK on the 7th day after the election, and they have really provided steady and wise leadership from behind to enable us to do the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Hi. I think we can all attest that when the going gets tough, neighbors and community are everything. And I really can't thank Rabbi Timoner and Councilman Lander for giving us the platform to come together and organize at such a difficult time. My name is Jennifer Friedland, and I facilitate the Free Press Working Group. Our group's mission is to promote a free press, to ensure that it remains free. And I invite everybody who's interested in the topic to join us. And at the next Get Organized BK monthly gathering on June 12th, we will be doing a panel called Truth or Trump, Democracy and a Free Press. The goal is to both learn about the issues facing the press as well as what we as citizens can do to keep the press free. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Lonnie Firestone. This year has been a challenging time for religious minorities in America, particularly Muslims. I started the Muslim-Jewish dinner series so that secular and religious Muslims and Jews might advocate more strongly for one another the way you would advocate for a relative. The idea to have intimate gatherings of 6 people per dinner table with home-cooked food grew out of the first Get Organized Brooklyn meeting right after the election, and Rabbi Timoner was my first and most ardent advocate. It's a pleasure to honor her tonight.
I'm so touched. Thank you to the Fifth Avenue Committee for recognizing our work. When Brad and I talked to each other the day after the election and said, we've got to do something, I don't think we could have imagined the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people who would fill CBE, Congregation Beth Elohim, the place I'm lucky enough to be the rabbi, and the way that that congregation would stand behind the work, and the energy and vision and strategy that would come from just our neighbors. Last week in Torah, in the Hebrew Bible, we read about the Jubilee. Jubilee is the vision that our tradition puts forward, and that many religious traditions put forward about what society should look like. And it entails proclaiming liberty throughout the land, and it entails sharing resources equally, and it entails ending poverty. And all religious traditions stand for this. So we should expect religious leaders of every kind and religious institutions of every kind to stand against the callousness and cruelty and evil that we are seeing in our society right now. Because we are all taught that we must stand for the oppressed. We must not oppress whoever is seen as the stranger or the marginalized. We must stand for justice in our societies. And so we look forward to partnering with all of you for the just society that we all deserve, and for outlasting, not giving up and not losing our attention span, but outlasting this administration. And I need to introduce, I don't know, he doesn't need an introduction, but Brad Lander and his team have been the most incredible leaders of this effort. Really, they are the primary leaders of this effort.
So democracy is under threat from the White House, but it is alive and well in Brooklyn. And that is because For 40 years, folks like the people in this room through the Fifth Avenue Committee have been fighting to sustain it and improve it and organize it. And it is because after the election, a powerful set of people have risen up to demand it. And that has been extraordinarily powerful to see. Now, democracy is hard work. It takes time, energy, effort, and a kind of faith that working together is a better way to solve our problems, which it doesn't always seem like it is. And building an inclusive democracy, one that reaches across those lines of race and class and neighborhood and religion that divide us, that is even harder work, because it is really for folks who have not seen the benefits of democracy, for folks who have instead seen systemic racism or seen a level of inequality that makes it impossible to believe that anybody's got a fair shake, for folks who have stories like Kathleen's about what it is simply to own your own home and hold on to it. How could you really believe that our democratic institutions, that idea of working together across lines of difference would be a better way, that we actually have shared faith, that we really are stronger together? Hard to believe. So I first want to say credit to Fifth Avenue Committee for organizing for 40 years to make sure that's possible, and to help people who have not seen the benefits of a more equal democracy, one, to fight for justice, to demand a fair share, to see a neighborhood that is rooted in that idea of equality and dignity, but to do it by strengthening people's faith that by organizing together, we can win the kinds of change that you heard from this podium tonight, that by acting together, we help each other, we build the neighborhood we want, and we strengthen the kind of democracy that would genuinely be inclusive. So I just first want to thank Francisca and Monica and Kathleen and Michelle and everybody in this room, and Pat and Kali and folks that for 40 years have been preparing the ground to defend democracy when it would be under its perhaps greatest threat. So thank you guys first. And then it has been just an incredible privilege to work with this remarkable set of leaders who have come forward since the election. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think I fully understood that it was a form of white privilege to believe that your government was actually supposed to work for you. And I think we have unfortunately discovered that maybe it is, and yet people being shaken in that idea and seeing that you cannot take it for granted wherever you sit across lines of race and class, but that we have a responsibility to stand up and fight for it is powerful, And what is so great about getting this award tonight here is that it suggests you could bridge across those things. That folks that have been organizing on the ground and doing the work and fighting injustice can come together with the folks who are rising up at this moment of resistance, so that when Trump and the GOP come for our immigrant neighbors, both the folks at Fifth Avenue Committee and the folks from Get Organized BK will be there to stand in the way. And when Trump and the GOP come for the 24, I guess now it's only 23 million people who will lose their health insurance, that we're going to organize together to do another die-in like this one and say, no way are we going to let that happen. And when Trump and the GOP come for reproductive health care and the rights of women, that Fifth Avenue Committee and Get Organized BK and public advocate Tish James, if you saw her the other night at Get Organized BK, are going to be there to put all our bodies on the line, women and men, across those lines. And when Trump and the GOP come for our public housing and our affordable housing dollars and the EPA and the Superfund and the resources that make it possible for us to have a democracy, for us to have a shared life together, rooted in that understanding that we truly do have a shared fate, you better believe that Get Organized BK and everybody up here is going to be standing with the folks at Fifth Avenue Committee. We are going to win this fight. It is going to take a lot more organizing, a lot more fighting, even more than we've done in the past couple of months. But I just feel so deeply grateful to be part of this community, to be part of this organization, and to have this recognition from Fifth Avenue Committee. So thank you. Let's keep fighting.
So I'm going to just remind all the presenters and awardees that we're going to do a big photo at the end. But this is the call to action part. You heard it a sec. Everybody has one of these, right? Okay, take it out. Take it out. So I think everybody knows that yesterday President Trump released the full details of the devastating fiscal year 18 budget proposal that would basically eviscerate food stamps, eviscerate public housing, eviscerate project-based and voucher-based Section 8, which helps low-income families, would eviscerate Medicaid for millions of people. And so there's a national coalition called the Coalition of Human Needs. And they have so our Congress is what we need to embolden them to stand up against these devastating cuts. So I'd like everybody to take out their cell phone and go to the Coalition for Human Needs website, cnh.org. Sorry, CHN. I did it backwards. Sorry about that. Coalition of Human Needs, so chin.org. And click on the link to sign on. This can be for organizations or for individuals to the letter going to Congress to oppose President Trump's budget. If we all do that tonight, that's 200 plus more people, and you can help spread the word to do this. There's other organizations like the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, which also has a sign-on letter. What's good about this letter is that it covers both housing and safety net programs, which are also under attack. So it's both which are under attack. I want to thank everybody for doing that, and I want to invite up public advocate and friend, Tish James, recognize her and see if she wants to say a few words. Woohoo!
I think much has been said. We all recognize and understand that we are in the midst of a storm, in the midst of chaos and confusion. But I think as opposed to us talking about our burdens, that each one of us have to broaden our shoulders at this point in time in our history. Because yes, our democracy is under attack, but each and every one of us, we have a responsibility and a duty to defend the Constitution and recognize that democracy is bigger than one individual and that the rule of law applies to each and every one of us, including the President of these United States. And so let us be reminded that we are winning. We are winning. We took him to court. Where are my lawyers at? Yay! We are winning. We defended the Muslim ban not once but twice. And so we will continue to fight him back each and every time. But let me also say, despite what is happening on the national level, let's be mindful of the fact that tonight, 65,000 New Yorkers will go to sleep in our shelters homeless, and a third of them are children. Let's be reminded of the fact that a countless number of individuals who are suffering from mental illness are sleeping on our streets. Let's be reminded that there are victims of domestic violence and people living with HIV and AIDS and those runaway youth who are all sleeping on our streets. What we need now more than ever is the voices of individuals with steel in their spine who will speak truth to justice and demand that we get social services and our human needs are met in this city and in this state. And so let's not cower behind our schedules and how busy we are. Let's continue to rise up, resist, and repeat it again. Thank you.
I also want to invite up Melanie Ash, co-chair of the Fifth Avenue Committee Board of Directors, to help close us out.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the board of the Fifth Avenue Committee and on behalf of the many dedicated employees who we are privileged to work with, on behalf of Michelle and the many communities that we strive to serve, I just want to thank everyone for coming and supporting our organization. This night is very important to our work, to our ability to continue the work. Funding is difficult to come by, and so we want to acknowledge the people who have continue to support us and who have made this night and the work that we do possible. So I want to thank our various sponsors and contributors: JP Morgan Chase, Two Trees, PMG, Industry City, Avante Contracting, Galaxy Group, Hershen Singer and Epstein, Mega Contracting, M&T Bank, LISC, and NEF, and all of our supporters at the neighborhood leader and community builder levels. Thank you to all of you who purchased tickets. Every little bit helps. We surpassed our goal and we raised more than $130,000 tonight. I want to thank
I just also want to thank Kathleen Parisi and the K2 New team. I want to thank Ron Zach and the team at fundraising, and in particular, Ameya and Camille Cazone. Camille's going to be moving to Philadelphia, so we're going to be losing her. So I just want to say thank you in particular to her. And of course, thanks to the folks at BAM, great performances. And please, now it's time to enjoy Yotoko and the great company and food, everybody in the room. So thank you so much, and gather for the photo if you're an awardee or a presenter. Thank you.